So this will be the last element in 7.4. So done everything up until this point in here, except kind of this last little step. Still dealing with, these little acronyms, ASA, side angle side, SAS, SSS, HL, so on and so forth. So what these directions are asking you to do, state what additional information is needed in order to know the triangles are congruent by the specified method. So this is now telling us that we want to use angle, side, angle. So what that would mean we need is one angle, which we have, so that's marked for us. So this angle being congruent to this angle, we need to come up with a side and another angle. So if you remember from last week, so it's now been a little bit of time, we had what we called shared angles and shared sides. So if you look at these two triangles, if we call this one triangle 1, this triangle 2, clearly there's no shared side here, but there is a shared angle. So that shared angle are basically angles that are kind of opposite of each other. They're across from each other. So what that would now give us, if we kind of go up back here to the top, oops, let me clear this out. Maybe my eraser will work. Come on. Here we go. We would now have, of these three things, we have this angle, we have this angle. What we are missing is the side. And if you look, the side has to go in between our two angles. So if you look at triangle number 1, the side for triangle number 1 in between those two angles is this side. And if you look at triangle number 2, the side that is in between these angles is this side. So what would have to happen is this side here and this side here would have to be congruent to each other. So what we would say is, what we need to know is that WU, so from here to here, would have to be congruent to, notice how we went from the 1 arc to the 2 arc. So that means this side here, we go from the 1 arc to the 2 arc, which is TU. If we knew that, then we could say by angle, side, angle, those two triangles are congruent. So that's all we're doing with this now. So if you look at number 12, we would want side, angle, side. So of the things that you are given, all we are given with this marking here and this marking here is one of our sides. So think about the way we always can come up with one is either through a shared side or a shared angle. And our shared element in this problem is this angle here. So this angle and this angle are congruent. So that is our side. So what has to happen now is this angle has to lie in between two congruent sides. So if we look at triangle number 1, here's a side, but that side doesn't lie, that side here wouldn't be directly next to the angle that we are trying to find. If we did this side, however, so let me get rid of the one that we don't want that one. If we look at this side right here, if this side was congruent to, and then now if we look over here, this side, then we would have a side, we would have an angle, and then we would have a side. All right, so knowing this side, and then knowing this angle because they're shared angles, they're vertical angles, they're across from each other, to go side, angle, side, we would want this side here to be congruent to this side here. Okay, so the way we would write that is segment EF would have to be congruent to segment FT. Okay. All right, the easiest one, side, side, sides. Now we do have a shared side. So if we look at this segment right here, that's a segment for triangle 1, and it's a segment for triangle 2. So if by putting one tick mark here, we're really marking two different sides. So what that means is we have two sides already marked. We would just need this third side that's missing. So in order for us to ensure that these triangles are congruent by saying all three sides are congruent, then what would need to have happen is this side here would have to have been congruent to this side here. So we would write that as UC, oh, that's bad, would be congruent to BC. If we knew that, then we would know those triangles are congruent through side, side, side. Okay? All right, to do this, hypotenuse, leg, we need the hypotenuse and the leg to be congruent. So this one's probably pretty straightforward, hopefully. Here's your right angle. The side opposite of that, here's a right angle, the side opposite of that, this is your hypotenuse right here. This is your hypotenuse for this one. Well, in order to have hypotenuse leg, that's what the H here stands for. The hypotenuses must be congruent. So what we would want to say is this hypotenuse would have to be congruent to this hypotenuse. That's what we would be needing to know in order for us to use hypotenuse leg. All right, so I would say YX. So I go from this angle to the angle where the one tick mark is at. So for this one, I'm going to go from T to U. Those would have to be congruent. Okay. 15, pretty much the same. We have to know, first it's got to be a right triangle. We have that here. We have that here. They are right angles. The hypotenuses must be congruent. So the side opposite of the right angle is your hypotenuse. So this side here would have to be congruent to this side here. So I would say SR would need to be congruent to HG. Oops. Oops, oops, oops. All right. Let me try to get this back. Yeah, so SR would have to be congruent to HG. Okay. And that's all we're doing. So kind of halfway through. Angle, angle, side. We need an angle, then another angle, and then a side. All we are given right now. So let me erase this so we kind of know what we're given. Come on. All we are given is a side. So we've got to be able to come up with these other two angles. The one angle is a shared angle. So we can know this angle is congruent to that angle because they're opposite of each other. They're vertical angles or a shared angle. And then we would need one more angle. So the only angles that we have left, like let's look at triangle number 1, we have an angle here and we have an angle here. But if we wanted to be angle, angle, side, we wouldn't want to pick this because this would be angle, side, angle. And we don't want angle, side, angle. We want angle, angle, side. So let me get rid of this. The angle that we would want would have had to, would have had to have been this one here, so that we would go angle to this angle to this side. So we would want to say that angle U, and then the same up here. We wouldn't want to use this angle because this would be angle, side, angle. We don't want angle, side, angle. But if we use this angle, now we would go from this angle to this angle to this side, so that we have angle, angle, side. So we would need angle U to be congruent to the angle that we would have had over here would have been angle F. All right. All right. Hypotenuse leg. So first, for hypotenuse leg, you have to have a right triangle. So these two guys are both right triangles. We have that marked here. That would mean this is also a 90-degree angle. The leg that we share is this one. So that's going to give us our leg. They each share this side. So what we need are the hypotenuses again. So opposite side of our right angles, those are hypotenuse. Those must be congruent. So we would say that segment KY, so from here to here, would have to be congruent to segment ZY, from here to here, okay? 18, yet again, maybe they should give you one where we don't have the, or we have the hypotenuse, but pretty much the same as the previous HLs. Here's your right angle, right? And then here's a right angle. Those are congruent. In order to use hypotenuse leg, the hypotenuse has to be known. So the side opposite of our right angle must be known. So segment will go here. Here's the hypotenuse for this triangle. So I would say segment GF is congruent to this hypotenuse in the other triangle, L to M. All right. Oops, that's an L. All right, and the last two. We would need two sides, which we have. So here's a side that's congruent to this side. And the second side that we know is here. Second side we know is here. So if we want side angle side, we've got to have the angle that's in between those two sides. So if this is our side and this is our side, the angle that is between them is this angle right here, angle Y. If we look at the second one, if this is one of our sides, this is one of our sides, the angle that is between those two sides is this angle here, which is U. So we'd have to say angle Y is congruent to angle U. All right, and last one. Again, probably the easiest, I think, side, side, side. We need all three sides to be congruent. Well, we have this side marked to be congruent to this side. And then we have this side congruent to this side. So we have two of the three. So the last thing, if we need all three of them, is what's going to happen is this side here would have to be congruent to this side here. Okay? So that's what we write. So we're going to say, although I have to be able to read what it says up here. What is this? So IL, that segment. So from here to this direction, from the kind of the third side down to the second, we would do the same thing here. X to Y from the third side. We move our way down to the V. So IL must be congruent to XV. Okay? Those are largely the questions I would ask. I'm going to try to put together a little quiz for Wednesday, because that's the next time that I would, next time you would be dealing with first, second, third, or fourth period. So I'll put a little quiz together on Wednesday with how you can do it. Again, the quizzes can only help your grade. So if you do well, it'll raise your grade, and if not, then it won't hurt. But if you're looking to raise your grade, it's a good opportunity without having to worry about any kind of stress of not being able to do it. So good luck with everything. If you have any questions, let me know. I will also probably just set up a Zoom for Wednesday morning at our scheduled time. That will just be if you have any questions on anything, if you need anything before you took your quiz, I can share my screen when we do that. Then if you had any questions, hopefully I can get you squared away before you would sit down and try and take that, if you're looking to help your grade a little bit. So with that, have a good night, and we will see all of you soon, hopefully. Bye.